that we are talking of. The right livelihood is one of the requirements of Buddha's Eightfold Path. It is clear, therefore, that there must be such a thing as Buddhist economics. So that's why I am trying to define as to why we should have Buddhist economics, because of the right livelihood. While the materialist is mainly interested in goods, the Buddhist is mainly interested in liberation. But Buddhism is the middle way and therefore in no way antagonistic to physical well-being. It is not wealth that stands in the way of liberation, but the attachment to wealth. Not the enjoyment of pleasurable things, but the craving for them. The keynote of Buddhist economics, therefore, is simplicity and non-violence. The modern economist is measuring the standard of living by than a man who consumes less. A Buddhist economist should consider this approach excessively irrational, since consumption is merely a means to human well-being. The aim should be to obtain the maximum of well-being with the minimum of consumption. Then the Buddhist teaching: cease to do evil, try to do good. From the point of view of Buddhist economics, therefore, production from local resources for local needs is the most rational way of economic life, while dependence on imports from afar and the consequent need to produce or export to unknown and distant people is highly uneconomic and justifiable only in exceptional cases and on a small scale. I think local resources, local needs is something that we now have to think of. Every follower of the Buddha ought to plant a tree every few years and look after it until it is safely established. And the Buddhist economists can demonstrate without difficulty that the universal observation of this rule would result in a high rate of genuine economic development independent of any foreign aid. So that's something that we should keep in mind. Much of the economic decay of the Southeast Asia, as of many other parts of the world, is undoubtedly due to a heedless and shameful neglect of trees. Even in Sri Lanka, everything is cut down. Yeah, modern economics does not distinguish between renewable and non-renewable materials, as its very method is to equalize and quantify everything by means of a money price. Thus, taking various alternative fuels like coal, oil, wood, or water power, the only difference between them recognized by modern economics is relative cost per equivalent unit. The cheapest is to automatically the one to be preferred, as to do otherwise would be irrational. Buddhist point of view, of course, this will not do. The essential difference between non-renewable fuels like coal and oil on the one hand and renewable fuels like wood and water power on the other cannot be simply overlooked. Non-renewable goods must be used only if they are indispensable, and then only with the greatest care and the most meticulous concern for conservation. Of course, globally, we have the Sustainability Development Goals, which have been accepted by all the countries. Then the Buddhist path to the 5 precepts that we have to look at in order that we could lead a correct life is to refrain from killing, stealing, adultery, lying, taking intoxicants. Now, these are, I think, the 5 that we also at the beginning of our session that we recite. The Buddha stresses that wealth alone is not evil, but the accumulation of wealth should be non-harming. Then I'd like to just to say a few things about Buddhist business management, because management is very important. Even for the economy, management is very important. Buddhism emphasis on a stress-free and peaceful life of coexistence makes even business management simple yet effective. Today, the aspects of the spiritual philosophy, such as meditation, morality, and wisdom, are applied in many cases, including business. High level of ethical practice, and to make sure that the employees and customers are satisfied, mindful, and happy. Then maintain a clean profile while earning a profit at the same time. Focus on the well-being of every individual related to the business. Good management is the essence of good business practices. Then on some aspects on financial management, while Buddha's teachings lead monks to follow the path to enlightenment by living a non-materialistic life, it does not discourage laypersons from making a profit. In fact, the Buddha in his teachings has encouraged people to work for the well-being of their families first, and only then to engage in charity. Buddha has emphasized on earning only by ethical means. The Singalovada Sutta mentioned that one's income should be divided into 4 parts, where 1 part should be consumed, 2 parts reinvested, and the remainder saved for the future. Then on philanthropy and CSR, charity is an important part of the Buddhist tradition. Buddha has stated that the money given as charity benefits both the donor and the receiver. Different Buddhist scripts have highlighted that while there is no limitation on how much one can give to others, it should not be done at the expense of the things needed for one's own personal livelihood. In a way, it suggests sustainable practices in terms of financial contributions for social causes. In the modern day world, business follow this concept through CSR and philanthropy initiatives. Today, they have adopted certain models of CSRs to benefit the society, which ultimately ensures long-term sustainability in business practices. In fact, in businesses, we have what is called ESG, or the environmental, social, and governance. Now, this includes the CSR also what we are talking, and society is an important aspect in this whole concept. Then top executives of some of the world's major companies. Now, these are some of the major people who have taken to Buddhism or used Buddhist principles. World's major companies have also been practicing Buddhist management to achieve success in their professional and personal lives. Jeff Weiner, founder of professional networking site LinkedIn, is one such executive who believes in compassionate leadership as a core means in organizational management. Then Mark Benioff, founder and CEO of an American cloud computing company, Salesforce, is a Zen Buddhism practitioner who is known for introducing mediation and mindfulness trainings in his company after following the advice of Buddhist monks. The most notable Buddhist businessman, perhaps, is the Apple's co-founder, late Steve Jobs, who was a follower of Zen Buddhism and relied on meditation, and is also a strict vegetarian. Then the multinational Japanese corporations such as Kyocera and TDK, for instance, have been practicing Zen management for a long time to achieve peace and productivity at work. And among the top Buddhist entrepreneurs is Korean electronics giant Samsung's chairman Lee Kung-hee, who brought changes in the work ethics of Samsung with his famous quote, "Change everything except your wife and kids." Then on the role of higher education, if higher educational institutions are able to develop courses that combine Buddhist philosophies and ethical business management practices, they can provide to be beneficial in terms of sustainability of businesses and increasing of productivity. Mindfulness is one of the most important aspects of Buddhist management. Mindfulness is a state of awareness of being in the present moment, but also being aware of one's thoughts and emotions. It allows for better concentration and more productivity. And I know that I'm sure Professor Manori is also closely involved with it in the school children where they are now teaching mindfulness. Then, of course, Sri Lanka, everyone says, is a Buddhist country. The Republic of Sri Lanka shall give to Buddhism the foremost place, and accordingly, it shall be the duty of the state to protect and foster the Buddha Sasana while assuring to all religions the rights granted by the various articles. Buddhism is the major religion followed in Sri Lanka with 70.2% of the population identifying Buddhist. Remaining Sri Lankan 12.6 as Hindus, 9.7 as Muslims, and 6.1 as Christians. Then I thought I'll just put down some of the things because you may also like to see whether there is a possibility of our trying to look at the Buddhist economy and solve some of the problems that we are currently having. What are the economic and financial problems we are facing now? Sri Lanka is a bankrupt nation, unable to repay foreign loans. They may have to restructure loans, bring in accountability and transparency, cultivate friendly relationships with foreign countries. Now, although we are a bankrupt nation, there is no one responsible as to who brought this to this situation. So that's why we are saying bring in accountability and transparency. Otherwise, you cannot really make any country. Then no foreign exchange. Use it wisely on essentials and not essential. Give priority for local production and export. Now, foreign exchange, of course, you know that today's price is not there tomorrow because of the exchange rates. Then local production, because I think there is a misconception that one feels that when there is an open economy, that we should destroy all what we are doing locally. And that is what really happened. All people started importing, and of course, in importing, there are a lot of rackets. People are under invoicing, they are doing so many things, and ultimately, the people who are producing are not able to compete. So that is really what has happened, and we have not given sufficient controls. We have not sufficiently regulated these methods, and it is not, although we are open economy, that is only working, but the other systems have really not worked. Even people who are importing, whether they are paying taxes, all these problems are there. So the system has to work. If and today's situation is that with the open economy, the correct system has not worked. Then inflation and prices going up, which I mentioned to you. Then expenditure is more than income. Now, anyone knows that if your expenditure is more than income, you cannot manage. Now, that is what has really happened to us, that although if we are to really catch up, maybe prior to 77, we have had difficult situations, but we were not in a debt situation. So we were able to overcome the situation and come back. But now it is entirely different because we have gone borrowing, and we have to repay the loans, and we are in very difficult situation. Then, of course, wastage and corruption, you know what it is. Its strict laws should be applicable. Although laws are there, no one is enforcing them. Good governance. Now, good governance, of course, in Buddhism, you always say that the kings have to be righteous, but I don't know whether our situation would have come to that if this good governance prevailed. Then environmental degradation. Then evaluate all government ministries, departments, state corporations, all public sector institutions which are funded from taxpayers' money. All of us are paying for this, not only us, even the people on the road are paying for it. And the public to determination of the value created to society. Because you see, our budget, the majority of the money, there are two areas where it is going. One is for the payment of salaries of the government servants. Other one is for the payment of interest. When you add these two together, you will have a minus figure because we don't have sufficient income. Then priority for agricultural production and self-sufficiency on food. Now, this has been a very major issue. You know the whole thing. Then education, higher education and technical education. I just want to give you one point on the education. If you really compare the ages of those who are passing out from universities, we just take India. India, the graduates are passing out at 22. In Sri Lanka, 24, 25. Doctors at 27, 28. Then at that age of 24, the Indian graduates have already got a master's and higher education. So you can see that we are really fallen down. These are things that people don't talk, but this is the real picture which people even don't talk of, but saying that just carrying on, and we are in a very tricky situation. Everyone is lining up. All the students are going to everywhere, and they are wanting to go overseas because Sri Lanka, the time factor is there, the proper education is not being done. So it's a very major problem. Then prevent political interference in the public service and make them accountable. You never hear of a public servant. Those days, the public servants were the people who ran the country. But today, what is happening, everyone is talking only of ministers. But if you have an efficient public service, this country will run well. That means there should be no interference. So that means, because these are all reasons for the current economic crisis. Because people are taking the public servants, they should be accountable, they should be trained. Earlier, people were sent overseas for training and then they came back. But today, we are in this sorry state because of this. Let me then look at Bhutan. I think Anoja mentioned at the beginning, that is about the gross national happiness index in Bhutan. Gross national happiness is a term coined by His Majesty, the fourth King of Bhutan, Jigme Singye Wangchuk, in the 1970s. The concept implies that sustainable development should take a holistic approach towards notions of progress and give equal importance to non-economic aspects of well-being. That is both economic as well as non-economic. Now, even in our financial world, we have what is called integrated reporting. Integrated reporting is taking into account the financial and non-financial areas. And when the companies give a report, they will have to report on all those aspects. It was stated that gross national happiness is more important than, actually in Bhutan, they said that we don't want gross domestic product, but we need gross national happiness. Since then, the idea of gross national happiness has influenced Bhutan's economic and social policy and also captured the imagination of others far beyond its borders. If you go to maybe the internet, you can find that even Harvard University, they are conducting research, they are having seminars, conferences on the GNH. The GNH index includes both traditional areas of socio-economic concerns such as living standards, health and education, and less traditional aspects of culture, psychological well-being. It is a holistic reflection of the general well-being of the Bhutanese population rather than a subjective ranking of the happiness alone. There are four pillars of good governance, sustainable economic development, cultural preservation, and environmental conservation. Then some of the results, people who have achieved sufficiency in less than 50% are unhappy. This is how they classify according after they do this index, and they comprise 10.4% of the population. A total of 48.7% of the people have sufficiency in 50 to 65% of the domains and are called narrowly happy. Then a group of 32.6% called extensively happy have achieved sufficiency in 66 to 76%. That is in between 6 and 7 domains. They have 9 domains. So, and in the last group, 8.3% of people are identified as deeply happy because they enjoy sufficiency in 77% or more weighted indicators, which is equivalent to 7 or more items of the 9 domains. So this shows the distribution of the happiness index in Bhutan. Now, this is what is there in India, in Thailand, called the Sufficiency Economy, economic philosophy, conceived by His Majesty King Bhumibol Adulyadej the Great, is one of his most famous and enduring legacies. Thailand's homegrown approach to sustainable development. The three components are reasonableness or wisdom, moderation and prudence. Of course, the sufficiency economy is also closely connected to the Buddhist ideologies in Thailand. Now, there are three levels. At the individual and family level, it means living a simple life, living within one's means and refraining from taking advantage of other people. At the community level, it involves joining together to participate in decision making, developing mutually beneficial knowledge, and appropriately applying technology. It favors the natural principle wherein one employs natural resources readily available in each locality. At the national level, it postulates a holistic approach with an emphasis upon appropriateness, competitive advantage, low risk, and avoiding overinvestment. It involves keeping abreast with what is happening elsewhere in the world, hedging investments and reducing imports and over-dependence on other countries. Now here again, they are talking of reducing imports and over-dependence on other countries. So those are some of the key areas I thought that I should present to you. So let me thank all of you all and for this time that was allocated, but certainly I have thrown certain points which I'm sure you might like to ask any questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Watawala. You gave a very comprehensive account of the pure economic approach to